Hi, I'm your host, Jürgen Strauss from InnovaBuzz, and I'm really excited to welcome to the InnovaBuzz podcast today, all the way from Playa del Carmen in Mexico, Rita Roushdy, who's a money mindset expert and a business coach. She is on a mission of helping 1 million women to level up their lives, their businesses, and achieve financial freedom. Welcome to the InnovaBuzz podcast, Rita. It's a great privilege to have you as my guest all the way from Mexico.
Thank you so much again for having me. I'm so excited to be here.
Lynn Howard, who is our guest on episode 467 of the InnovaBuzz podcast, suggested that we have a conversation with you, and she introduced us. So big hello to Lynn.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Lynn, for the introduction.
Now, it's interesting. I read your background and I was fascinated by the whole idea of money mindset and your mission, and I'm really looking forward to digging into that, particularly around the reprogramming of thinking and beliefs around money and self-worth. And I know you kind of work at a deeper level because your belief is that money is the manifestation of some other things that might be going on in our lives. So there's a lot to unpack there. Really looking forward to that. Before we do that, Rita, what's the impact you're making in the world today?
What a question to begin this episode. Thank you, Jürgen. The impact that I'm making in the world today is leading by example. I am showing my audience, I'm showing my clients, I'm showing everyone who gets in contact with me how their dreams is actually possible with the least effort, with the most alignment, and with the it's just the ease that they've always wanted to have in life. You know, you don't have to struggle and push and, effort your way to your dream life. It can just happen for you when you are in complete alignment all the way throughout, which we're going to be discussing in depth today.
Yeah, and you talk about acting as an example, leading by example for your community. And one of the things that I'm sure our listeners can tell that there's a hint of an English accent there, and how does that fit with Mexico? Now, when we first spoke a couple of months ago, you were still living in England, and now you've realized one of the dreams you've had for a long time and moved to Mexico, right?
Yes, absolutely. And honestly, when I first started my first business about a decade ago, all I wanted to do, and the reason that I wanted to start my business, was to become location independent, to be able to grab my laptop and work anywhere in the world that I want, to experience life, as I make money. It doesn't have to be it doesn't have to be that or that. It can be that and that. And yeah, this has been an incredible dream. I've been here for maybe 3 weeks. Yes. So yeah, it's been a journey. And as I was just sharing with you before we clicked record, it has come with its own challenges and difficulties and things to work on within myself that I am sure are an indication as to how I will expand even further from there.
Wonderful. All right. Well, we might dig into that a little bit more later on, but I wanted to start off by talking about the idea of money and mindset. And there's a lot of talk around about a scarcity mindset versus an abundance mindset. I guess we're witnessing right now situations in the world where there's high inflation, where the value of money as a commodity is being eroded quite rapidly. People are finding it difficult to pay for things that they might have found easier to pay for a while ago. And so this creates this thinking of it's hard to get more money, it's hard to overcome this vicious cycle. And of course, we're all brought up with, I remember my parents saying, I can't shake money out of my sleeves, and money doesn't grow on trees, and a few sayings like that. They were the most common ones. So talk to us a little bit about how do we kind of in our own minds start to break free of some of those limiting beliefs and say, well, that money flows. Money, it's like one of my business coaches had this saying that it's like the tide. It comes in, it comes out, it's renewed, like it rains and there's more water and then there's a dry spell. So money, you can see money like that. So how can we kind of start to get rid of these things? It has to be hard. Money doesn't grow on trees. It's, yeah.
So to begin this process, to begin your journey on this healing path, if you will, is to just create awareness around not only what is going on externally in your life right now. That might be, on a collective spectrum of, the inflations and all of the things that you've mentioned. But it could also be on a more personal level. Something happened at work that ticked you off, something that is triggering you right now that may or may not be in relation to money, but maybe in relation to how you make money or what you spend money on. Or, like inflations, all of the bills are now more, so I can't spend money on myself. For example, I've been speaking to a lot of women lately who have, mentioned that they put themselves last when it comes to spending. And even when they do that, they feel guilty about spending on themselves. All of those things, they start with awareness. It starts with awareness of self. It starts with awareness of external circumstance. And the idea, or the very, very important point, very powerful point, to take responsibility for your circumstances. Now, I'm not saying this to be harsh or to be, take responsibility, you're not doing enough. That's exactly the opposite of what I'm saying. But by taking responsibility for how you feel about your external circumstance, you then now have taken yourself out of victimhood, out of victim mentality, and you're empowered just by taking responsibility. So I think I'm going off on a tangent now, and I might give up. I might give up all of the secrets that we're going to be sharing throughout this. So basically, the two first things that I would say start off your journey to breaking through limiting beliefs and how you feel about money is, number one, awareness, and number two, taking a responsibility.
Yeah, and by taking responsibility, I think you mean, and correct me if I'm wrong here, but it's rather than saying, oh, there's inflation, it's so bad, and just feeling sorry for myself, or there's that other external circumstances. You mentioned having difficulty at work, and I can certainly relate back to times where I've, in my corporate job, where I've been in situations where I'm just unhappy here, but felt that I couldn't leave because I needed that income. And so that's kind of a money mindset, even though it's not directly the money that is on my mind right then, right? And taking the responsibility and saying, well, what can I control? What can I change? Can I make my situation better? Are there other options? That's kind of taking ownership and taking responsibility.
Yes, absolutely. Yes to all of that. However, even further into taking responsibility is taking responsibility to how you feel about what is going on. Because once you shift that, your external circumstance actually shift. Okay,
so explain to me, how do we kind of take responsibility for how I feel?
Okay, so for example, yesterday I went to Tulum, which is the next city along, and I've been going through all of these mindset blocks of my own, being here, a single female on my own in Mexico, things like, I'm getting on a bus for the first time in a different country. I don't speak the language very well. And I woke up yesterday with so much fear in my body. I could just feel it. It was pure fear. And instead of resisting it, instead of ignoring it, I decided to take responsibility for it by leaning into it and figuring out why I feel the way that I feel. How can I support myself through feeling better even though all of those external circumstances might, what if this happens? What if that happens? What if I'm outside of the house and I can't get in touch with anyone if something happened? All of those fears, come up for me. And you then might translate that to you if you were talking about your older job, corporate job, and you weren't happy, you weren't fulfilled, but you decided to stay in it because you needed that income, right? So the unhappiness and the unfulfillment, they would be coming from somewhere deep within. Same as with me, the fear was coming from within. It wasn't actually because of the external circumstance. The external circumstance actually were just a mere opportunity for the feelings to come up, for you to feel them and release them. Because what we feel, we release. If we don't feel something, if we resist the fear, if we resist anger, if we resist and push down, they still remain in your body. They still remain, within our energy fields, and they continue to affect us. But by taking responsibility for the feeling and working through the feeling, it almost gives you a sense of relief, because whatever external circumstance is happening, that feeling will no longer be. Does that
make sense?
Right?
Yeah, it makes sense. I'm curious. How did you, in your case, work through that? Do you journal? Do you meditate? How do you kind of get in touch with those feelings? Because there's a lot. We've talked a lot on the show in various forms about self-awareness and being really clear about the talents we have, the skills we have, what's unique about us. And I think this falls into the same category, being self-aware. How do I feel? What's my response to this external stimulus, this external environment that I find myself in, and why am I responding this way? So how do you get in touch with those feelings and express them in a way that you can say, well, okay, this is why I'm feeling this way. This is what I can control and can change to help address those feelings, or to mitigate that fear if it's a fear of, you feel that there are threats there in that external environment.
So everyone's different, and I have found the tools that have worked for me. Specifically yesterday, I leaned into breath work, which is a part of my morning ritual now anyway. For me, it used to be at night. Now it's in the morning, because I just want to extend my empowered morning ritual. So for me, I leaned into breath work, which means we use the breath to take the nervous system from a state of sympathetic. This is not my area of expertise, so this is why I lean on someone else for it. But basically, we use the breath as a tool to take the nervous system from a fight or flight response to a more coherent, more in alignment feel, more relaxed feel. So this is what I leaned on. This is the tool that I used yesterday, but I have so many other tools. In the moment, this is my go-to. Again, it works for me. It might not work for everyone, but it's so powerful for me. And I feel like the more that I do it, the more I can get into the breathwork session. So the more experience I have, the more depth I feel in the session. And but personally, as a coach, I would then address it. If that was a client, for example, I would then address it in more depth by following back the energy to a specific memory that they felt that there was a threat, that they felt that that fear was coming up for them. So that specific memory in their past is the root cause of why they feel the way they feel today. And that's how I personally would then, do it with myself or with my coach, maybe a few days later or whenever I can.
Yeah. So visiting memories that trigger that. So an example of that is what I talked about earlier, the having been told throughout our childhood about money, the value of money, and money doesn't grow on trees and so on. And there might be some trigger events that are key to that. And if we look back on that and say, well, that trigger event doesn't necessarily have to define me anymore.
Yeah, exactly that. And there are two different types of traumatic events. There are big T's and little T's. What you're describing is a little T. However, it does not take away from the depth or the effect it can have on your current life, because it's a little T. However, it's happened over such a long time, such a long period of time, and with so many recurrences, so many what's the word I'm looking for? Yeah, recurrences.
Repetition.
Yeah, repetition, exactly. So it becomes so ingrained into who you are. It's actually more. It has more effect on you than, say, a big T, where it's a big T is like a car accident, or something that is huge that's happened in your life that's completely affected your sense of safety, or something along those lines. Basically, when it threatens your life, that's a big T. Yeah.
So you talked about safety there, and I'm sure you're well aware of the 5 core needs that I think it was Tony Robbins that kind of articulated those first, but they probably go back further than that. And safety is definitely a big one. Is there a relationship between all of those needs and our attitude to money? And how can we kind of understand that relationship and maybe change things if we're unhappy about our situation with money?
Absolutely, there is a correlation between safety and money. Everyone I speak to, all of my clients, all of the women that I speak to on a day-to-day basis, they come to me because they feel they need financial security in order for them to feel safe, in order for them to feel secure. However, and it's funny because one of the reasons that I wanted to come to Mexico is to expand or even upgrade my level of, or this sense of safety that I feel regardless of what's going on in life. And as I say those words, I'm very aware of why these fears were coming up for me, because again, it's what I've asked for. Challenges come because it's what we've asked for, right? But the challenges are on the way to how you want to feel eventually. So yes, feeling safe from within is paramount to then having the financial security that you want in the money department, of course. But I feel like it's very it translates to all areas of life. How you feel within first dictates what your reality looks like.
On that topic of how we feel within, I know you talk a lot about self-worth, and self-worth comes into so many different things, but certainly around the money thing. So self-worth could manifest itself in what we charge for our services. So I can't charge more than X because people won't pay more than X, which is a limiting belief. It's a belief about what I'm worth. Then, of course, you mentioned earlier about women not wanting to spend money on themselves first because there might be a belief, well, I need to put the food on the table first, and that's becoming more expensive with inflation, so I won't spend on myself, which again is a self-worth thing because it's like I'm less important than this other thing, whether that's right or wrong. Talk to us a little bit more about this idea of self-worth, and how can we become more aware of where that's coming into play, and and how to question that and how to challenge perhaps some of the assumptions we're making there about our self-worth and ourselves.
Yeah, honestly, self-worth is a pandemic of its own. It is, it affects 100% of us. If we continue, if you're a human being listening to this and if you have a goal, you will have to upgrade your self-worth in order to achieve that goal, because it's something that you may not have achieved before. If it was expansive enough, it's not something that you've achieved before. So you'll have beliefs like, is it possible for me? Am I worthy of this goal? And, can I actually do it? Is that even possible for me? So if those, questions, you can just notice your thoughts as you think about your goal, or think about maybe Charlie, you've mentioned the example of charging more for your services, and notice the thoughts that come up for you as you are thinking about that thing. And those are the indications and notice how you feel. Notice how you feel. If there's a tightness in your body, is it like a fear, fight or flight response, or a freeze response? You'll know that there's a deeper level to be uncovered, so that you can feel good about yourself, and it becomes an effortless process to raise your prices or achieve that big goal that you've had for a long time, or whatever it is. Yeah,
so a lot of
it goes back to trauma as well. I mean, for me, it goes back to childhood trauma of feeling, again, it was small t's, but it happened over such a long time that it became, okay, well, I'm not good enough. I'm not worthy of my parents' love, for example, or I'm not worthy of whatever it is. Self-worth is on an identity paradigm level. So it cuts deep. It's very deep, because it's identity. It's not money. It's not money paradigm. It's an identity thing that affects all areas of life. And that's actually one of my favorite things to work on, because I can see how many aspects my clients see a difference in within their lives, and not just money.
Yeah. Well, that's an interesting point, isn't it? That we place so much emphasis on money, and obviously we need money to live our lives. That's the way we barter for services, for food, for the things that we need, for shelter, for homes, for travel experiences. And yet it really is just a mechanism. It's not a means in and of itself, but we've kind of elevated it to this means of itself. And then we have all this philosophy that becomes a mindset like money is the root of all evil, which is another one that's just come to mind.
Yeah.
And yet, if it's the root of all evil, well then how come we need it to live a life? And there's lots of people living really good lives and making really valuable contributions to the world that wouldn't be possible without them having money.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that in of itself, if someone has that belief, if you're listening to this and you have this voice in your head, yeah, but my parents have said this about money, or money is the root of all evil. But on a human level, no one wants to be evil, right? We all strive to be good, right? It's just nature. It's like human nature. I mean, don't get me started on war and everything, so that's not my area of expertise. But even then they're doing what they're doing to protect, or because they think it's what the best thing is, right? It's human nature to be, to do good for whatever reason they believe is the good thing. So going back to the point of, if you have the belief that money is the root of all evil, then that might stop you in itself. That might be an energetic block for you that stops the flow of money to come through you, because you don't want to feel like you're evil, or that it's human nature to protect yourself, to not feel like you're evil because you have money. Or what I've seen happen in the past is that you'll get a lot of money and then you lose it really quickly because you're like, oh, but I'm not even. Let me just get rid of it because I don't want to.
Yes.
I don't want that brand. But yeah, I hope that I've answered that correctly. Bringing in,
well, yeah, it's a fascinating thing you've raised there about if you do, if people have this belief around money and they do come into a lot of money, that they do everything they can to get rid of it, even irresponsible things, and that kind of brings them back to because that's consistent with my belief that money is bad. And there's so many stories around of people that have won the lottery, won sort of hundreds of millions in the lottery, and within the space of a couple of years they've gotten rid of it all, which is, for me, is really hard to imagine. If you come into that much money, I'd be saying, well, it's really, once you've got that level of money, it's almost impossible not to earn more.
Yeah, well, I mean, we're going into the realm of money paradigm right now. This question is a very much money paradigm related question, because we are set. We have a financial thermostat. Everyone has a financial thermostat as to how much money they make a year, how much money they make a month, and how they make that money, how they feel while they make that money, and what they spend their money on. Are they a saver? Are they a spender? Do they like to invest? It shapes your relationship with money. So your money paradigm is, say, for example, you have a financial thermostat of making 100K a year, right? If you want to upgrade and make 200K a year, you need to change that on a subconscious level to create a filing system to see that it is possible for you. It is available for you, first of all, because a lot of people will think, oh, well, no, of course not. There's not enough money to go around, which is a scarcity mindset. But changing or upgrading your money paradigm from within first makes that goal so much more effortless for you. If we're using the example of lottery winners or anyone who comes in for with a lot of money very quickly, they lose it very quickly because it's like, their thermostat is set to a certain degree. It's going to have to go back to what it's set to. So and another thing is the skill, right? As if they don't have the skill to invest, or they don't have the paradigm to invest, whatever it is, they will have no other thinking about. They will just lose. It will just go. Yeah.
Yes, I like the paradigm of the thermostat. It's sort of like the air conditioning, right? If it's under 20 degrees, it'll warm the house up until it reaches 20 degrees. But then if the sun's shining outside and the house warms up from the sun to 25 degrees, well, the thermostat will cool the house back down to 20.
Exactly. Yes, exactly. And if you have the window open and the cool air escapes, the thermostat the aircon will be working even harder to refill that cool air for you. So it's just the capacity to hold money, to hold large sums of money, the capacity to spend a specific amount on yourself, if we're using that example from earlier. So.
Wonderful. Yeah, love that. Love the analogy. Love the metaphor. Okay, well, let's switch gears a little bit. And I know I think it was the pandemic that kind of almost forced you to pivot your business to mainly online. But you talked earlier about having this dream from many years ago of being location independent. And of course, moving your business online gives you that ability. So talk to us a little bit about how you recognized that was what you needed to do and how you made that pivot.
Well, how I recognized, the pandemic for me was a gift. It was a blessing in disguise, if you will, because before the pandemic, right up before the pandemic, I was running around like a headless chicken, around out of 5 different sources of income. All of them took my time and attention. Maybe one that was passive, but yet it still required a lot from me, because that was my money paradigm back then. I had to work a lot for the money that I received, and even then, even though it was a lot of money, I was unfulfilled. I was overwhelmed. I was self-sacrificing. I was burnt out. And when the pandemic hit, I was forced to stop any activity that required for me to go and see people or do anything. So it gave me back my time. What the beauty is that I still had the passive income to help me sustain, my mortgage or all of the expenses, all of my monthly expenses. So I still had that going, but it gave me back the time and the space to reflect on how my life was going so far. And upon that reflection, I realized how much I strayed away from the dream of being location independent, of being financially free without having to be in my business doing all of the things all of the time. Instead, I realized, okay, well, I remembered almost. I had a remembrance of, okay, that's actually why I started this, but that's where I'm at. So it gave me the opportunity to reflect and redirect my journey. And I decided, okay, well, let me just research a few things, because I'm multi-talented. I mean, if I can pick something up, and if I really enjoy it, and if I have passion towards it, I can make it work. So I was like, okay, well, let me research, what can I do that is in alignment with my journey, with where I want to be, location and financially free. And coaching, I came across coaching, and I was like, okay, great, amazing. I've been in business for 10 years, business coach, done, easy. But it didn't work for me that way. It wasn't working at the beginning. And again, that was because it was a reflection. Coaching, I don't know about you, I don't know about what your experience is, but for me, coaching has been the business of coaching has been a huge magnifying glass over everything that I was unhappy within myself. It was just a reflection of so many things, because it's a personal brand, right? It's not just, and it's also, it takes a lot of healing to really guide someone to overcome their own struggles. I believe anyway, from my experience. So I've began coaching. I began my own healing journey, and I've pivoted into money mindset, because that's what was required. I did a market research, and 100% of the women who have answered the market research, I asked them, what's the number one thing that you want more of, that you need more of, that you struggle with right now? And 100% have replied, money. So I was like, okay, well, that does it. Money mindset and business it is, because it's not about the fruit. It's not about the results that you're getting. If you continue to try and change the result, you'll continue to get the same result. But if you change things at the root, then the fruit will as a result change with that. So yeah, that's my journey. It's my story.
Fantastic. And some of what you said there is certainly true, I think, of most coaches that are really vested in the success of their clients, because they're in such rapport with their clients. There's the things that they notice are the things that are in themselves as well. And the things that they feel are the biggest blocks are sometimes shine a light back on themselves.
Yeah, I mean, it really depends on the client, but it also depends on how empathetic you are as a coach, because I myself am an empath. So I have this whole routine before I get into a coaching call to make sure that I'm protected, because at the beginning of my coaching career, my coaching business, I went into calls and I went out and I came out, and it was exactly what you just said. I was like, whoa, like I feel the way that they were describing, because I'm such an empath. I cling to other people's feeling. I feel what they feel on a deep level. And again, through my own healing journey, yes, it reflected back a few things that I needed to heal, but it also it allowed me to build the routine, the tools that I needed to protect myself while helping my client.
Which is really important in those situations. And I think the other thing you said around money and charging more for services and so on, and asking more, well, the mindset of having to work hard for charging more or getting more money, it's changing that to a mindset of it depends on the value, because money really is just an exchange of value. So, money is actually just paper. It's got nice stuff printed on it, but it's the value of that is why it's useful, why it's so valuable. And so looking at it as an exchange of value. So I provide some value, which might be coaching in your business, and in return for that value, somebody else, the client, provides money.
Yeah. Well, like you say, it's an energetic change, right? It's an energetic exchange of, value. And to lean more into what it truly is, and kind of have that distance between your self-worth, your limiting beliefs, and what it is, your service. I think that is a skill in its own, and it takes a lot of time to, it doesn't take a lot of time to integrate. I mean, it takes a lot of, I don't know how to describe it, but it takes a lot of practice. That's it. Practice to really have it. So it's an effortless mindset shift, but it's, imagine, right? Okay. Imagine there's this thing you've just described. So if it's someone who believes they need to work hard, there's a belief. Okay. So there's the external circumstance is that I work hard for money, and the more money I make, the harder that I need to work. This is the external circumstance. So if you imagine, if you like your analogies, I'm going to go into one right now. So imagine a weed, right? A weed that is in your garden. So you continue to cut the weed, you mow the lawn, you cut the weed at the surface. The weed is still there because the roots are still in the ground and growing within the ground. And if you imagine the weed having so many roots, right? So each root is a belief. Maybe that one root has so many different roots coming out of it, and that one root is maybe a core belief around money. The little roots that are coming out from that bigger root are the memories that are supporting that are feeding into that bigger root. So by working on each memory individually, and by cutting down the roots and pulling out one root at a time, that's what I mean by it takes a long time to really weaken that weed and pull it out by the roots, so it doesn't come back, so it doesn't bother you again. So if you are working in the future, I've had a client, for example, who has made a lot of money, but then she felt guilty. She felt the need. Oh, okay, I feel like I need to work more. Like it just feels weird having this money in my bank and having. Just weakening the weed and pulling out the weed by the roots, it helps you feel better when you do make a lot of money effortlessly as well. And if you don't, there are more weeds to take out.
Yeah, great. I love the analogies. All right, Rita, I think this is a good point to move on to the buzz, which is our innovation round, the same 5 questions that I ask of every guest. And the idea is that you'll inspire the listener to take some action today and achieve something awesome as a result.
All right. Amazing.
So you all set?
Yes, I'm ready.
So what's the number one thing anyone needs to do to be more innovative?
Change the paradigm to be more innovative. Yeah.
Just have belief that you are.
Yeah, absolutely. The belief is, I mean, the subconscious belief is 9,500 times more powerful than any external action that you take. So by changing that belief from the beginning, it just makes your life so much easier. You will be more creative, you will have more ideas, and you will be more innovative as a result.
Great. Love it. All right. What's the best thing you've done to develop new ideas?
Not be afraid to take risks and get things wrong. I mean, in the past, I've pivoted my businesses to this point 100 times over. You know, pivoting my business was like another Thursday for me back in the day. So it's just if something's not right, something doesn't work for you, obviously try for a while before you do pivot. But yeah, taking risks, pivoting, and not being afraid to make mistakes.
Love it. So be flexible and adaptable as well.
Absolutely.
All right. Do you have a favorite resource you use most often?
Resource. Yes, breathwork. Is that the answer you were looking for?
That's fine. Perfectly fine. Yeah. So describe it a little bit more for us. I'm curious, how do you go about starting the breath work, and what kind of breath work do you do?
For me, I am a subscriber for with a guy called James. It's Breathe with James. If you're interested, if you're intrigued, it's very powerful, and he has different categories, if you will. So if you want a manifestation breath work, you want emotional release breath work, and again, that's just one of my resources. I compound that with journaling. I compound that with meditation, awareness, and all of the things. But breath work is powerful, and I highly recommend it.
Excellent. So it's guided breath work and I guess you have routines that you then do.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right. What's the best way to keep a client on track?
That's a good question. I think every person reacts to different things and has different triggers and different results as a result. It's a good question. It comes from within, so it's very personalized to each client. I can't quite answer that from within, but I do have my tools for that specifically. But it comes from within the client themselves. So all I do is guide them to figure out why they're not consistent or what it is that is stopping them from within. And by working on the root cause, it helps them stay on track and hit every financial goal that they have, and move into the goals that they set with effortlessness and flow.
So key for you is understanding what are their triggers, what are their values and vision and goals.
Yeah, absolutely.
Work with them on that.
Yeah. So can I change my answer for the resource? Because I feel like actually it came literally as I answered. My most used resource is actually my heart, my intuition. And I built that through a lot of healing, yes, but breath work is powerful to tap into your intuition.
That,
So yeah, my most powerful resource is my heart, but breath work is a tool to get into there.
Excellent. Love it. All right. Now, what's the number one thing anyone can do to differentiate themselves?
Ooh. Not compare themselves to others. Comparisonitis is, again, a pandemic of its own. Everyone has this tendency, myself included, to this day. It's something I'm currently working on, is to stop comparing myself to other people, maybe who are doing similar thing, who are showing up in a slightly different way. But to own your individualism is so powerful to your audience. Again, it leads by examples to how they can also feel within themselves, to feel their self-worth enough, to feel worthy enough of being themselves just as they are, and having the success they want at the same time. It's this and, self-worth and success. It's being yourself and success. It's not all.
Yeah. Yeah. And you mentioned, well, you talked about self-worth there, but self-awareness and knowing knowing yourself really well, and then feeling that sense of self-worth is important there. So thanks for that answer.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thanks, Rita. This has been fabulous. Now, where can people learn more about you, about the work you do, and maybe even reach out and say thanks for what you shared today?
Absolutely. I'd welcome any feedback as well, and any saying hello. Come say hi on Instagram. At Abundance on Demand. I'm sure Jürgen will keep that in the show notes for you. And I'll also include my website, ritaroushdy.com, which currently might be changed into abundanceondemand.com. So keep an eye out for that change.
Okay.
Thank you so much, Jürgen, for having me. It's really been a pleasure sharing this knowledge with you and your audience. Excellent.
Now, is there some parting advice, some action you'd like the listener to take away from today's conversation?
Parting advice. Honestly, the one thing that will completely change your life is changing your belief. And I'm not saying change your thoughts, because your thoughts are a result, that they are a product of your deeper belief system. So by changing your belief system, you'll just completely change your life, and you'll have so much more of what you want in your life. It's a powerful practice and journey to embark on.
And one of the ways to do that, you mentioned thoughts there, is to be aware of the thoughts we have, be aware of the conversations that go on inside our heads, which they're happening all the time, and ask, why am I thinking that? Be curious.
Yeah, it goes so much deeper than that. From my experience, I need a coach for it. I need someone who's specialized in the tool that I use to help me get to the memories, help me get to the core beliefs that is then result in the thought processes. One way is to work with a coach. Honestly, I am currently having a very few spaces for a genuine, powerful coaching experience, and it's completely free. So all I expect is complete and undivided attention from the receiver. So if that's something that you're looking for, and you're looking to experience what I'm talking about, the belief system upgrades and the method and the tool that I use is really powerful. I'll keep a link with Jürgen to do that as well.
Excellent. Well, that's very generous. Thank you. Finally, then, Rita, who else should I get on the show and why?
Oh, it's a good question. My friend Anna, she's an incredible coach herself. She's business and mindset, and she is amazing at what she does. She's more strategic. She's very outspoken, and she says it how it is. She doesn't shy away from the truth. And she has this gift of being authentically vulnerable in such a powerful way that just makes you feel so much more connected to her. And I feel like that is, from my perspective, it might not be from her perspective, but from my perspective, it is her superpower to attract in her clients to her, because people feel connected and resonate with her, with what she's going through on a deeper level, or what she has gone through on a deeper level. Excellent.
Well, we'll get you to introduce us to Anna and start the conversation with her, see if we can bring her on the show as well.
Absolutely.
So thanks so much for sharing your time and your insights with us so generously today. I've learnt a lot more about the whole idea of money being and our attitude to money as being manifestations of some other stuff that might be going on in our lives, or some deep-seated beliefs that we have. And I've loved all the metaphors, the thermostat that dial it in. So one takeaway is dial that thermostat up higher if you want to achieve more, and also the weeds, I can relate to the weeds because they seem to take over the lawn if I just mow them back. But if we attack the roots, we can actually change that. So,
Exactly.
thanks again, Rita. All the best for the future. Enjoy your time in Mexico, and please do stay in touch.
Absolutely. Thank you so much again for having me. And yes, excited to stay in touch as well.